Hi students, today we are doing 6.1 notes. Chemical bond is electrical attraction between nuclei and the valence electrons of a different atom. So if I were to draw, so it would be one atom here with the nucleus being attracted to another atom here. Here's the nucleus. It's being attracted to the valence electron. So this nucleus is attracted to these. That binds the atoms together. And I'm going to erase that so you guys can read the rest of the notes. So ionic bonding is a transfer of electrons between a cation and an anion. And a covalent bonding is the sharing of electron pairs between two atoms. So here shows a picture of a covalent bond versus an ionic bond. So on the left here, you have a covalent bond where you actually are sharing of your valence electrons. And so these are always your valence electrons that are being shared. And then in the ionic bond, you have a transfer of your valence electrons, which creates a positive ion and a negative ion. And remember that positive ion is called the cation, and the negative ion is called the anion. That comes from the chapter 5 notes. There are two types of covalent bonds. You have a nonpolar covalent bond, which has bonded electrons shared equally, and then polar covalent bond, which is bonding electrons are not shared equally. So this kind of shows you the three different types. Here's your nonpolar, where your valence electrons are being shared equally, so you've got an equal amount. And this one, in the middle of the polar one, the valence electrons are not shared equally, so this chlorine is hogging the electrons. And then there's the ionic bond, whereas there's a transfer of valent electrons. So the chlorine, this one, takes all of sodium's valence electrons. So in the ionic bond, it takes all of it. Polar, it just hogs them. And then nonpolar, they share nicely. You can classify bonds by different ways. They're always going to be classified as ionic or covalent, and then the covalent is split up. There's another type we'll talk about later on. But you can figure out if it's ionic or covalent based off of different ways. And so one of them is by figuring out the electronegativity difference between them. And you always take your larger minus the smaller. This triangle just means change in. And so you need to memorize this chart. So memorize chart. If it's 0 to 0.3, it's nonpolar covalent. If it's 0.4 to 1.7, it's polar covalent. And if it's 1.8 plus, it's ionic bond. Melting, there's another ways by their properties. So if you have a high melting point, it's going to be ionic. If it's low, it's going to be covalent. At room temperature, ionic is a solid, covalent is a solid, liquid, and a gas. Ionic is always water soluble, so this would be always. Covalent is sometimes. Ionic does conduct electricity when it's dissolved or when it is melted, and covalent does not conduct electricity. Particle attraction, this is like between the atoms in the bond. Ionic is high and covalent is low. And ionic is formed by metal with a nonmetal, and covalent is two or more nonmetals. And that would be it.